Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. So for today's session, we are going to be talking about our pre-market live analysis. Um, we'll maybe give about 1 more minute to let more people join the session before we get started. In the meantime, let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me and see me. And of course can see my screen. And we'll begin in about 30 more seconds. Thanks everyone. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So as per usual, a disclaimer and risk warning: trading forex and CFDs carries a high level of risk to your capital, and you should only trade with money you can afford to lose. Trading forex and CFDs may not be suitable for all investors, and you should only trade with money. And so, sorry. So please ensure that you fully understand the risks involved and seek independent advice if necessary. Please read and ensure you fully understand our risk disclosure. Okay, so here's our agenda. I'll basically just be taking any requests from you guys throughout the whole session. So feel free to pop your requests into the chat and we'll go through as many as we can during this time. Okay, so I'm Melanie and I'll be a speaker for today. I'm an investment analyst at Rocket, who were finalists for Best FX and Equity Research in the years 2019 to 2021. So we specialize in technical analysis with a focus on Fibonacci retracements, extensions, and projections. Okay, now before we get started, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the, oops, let me just, so before we start, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the events that's happening for this week. Sorry, I'm not so sure what's going on with my voice on my screen right now. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so you pretty much can use any economic calendar that you wish to. We normally like to use forexfactory.com. And now let's look at this entire week's events, apply settings. So I like to filter it to focus on the medium to high impact events, which are these orange and red icons. But you can also look at the lower impact icons, which are represented by the yellow calendar emoji. So you can see there are a lot more events to cover. So that's why we just streamline it and just focus on the medium to high impact events. So this helps us to kind of get an idea of when prices will be affected by data releases or policy decisions, things like that. Okay, so for today, Monday, we have China's manufacturing and non-manufacturing PMI. We have Eurozone, we have German preliminary CPI month-on-month data. Tomorrow we have Australia's retail sales, cash rates, RBA rate statement. So all these are pretty high impact events. And of course the RBA press conference to go with that. Eurozone we have core CPI flash estimate, and ECB President Lagarde speaking. In US, we have the final manufacturing PMI, ISM manufacturing PMI, US job openings, ISM manufacturing prices, and on Wednesday, just US ADP non-farm employment change. On Thursday, we have Swiss CPI data and also all OPEC meetings. We also have US unemployment claims, final services PMI, and ISM services PMI. On Friday, we have China's bank holiday, UK construction PMI, Canadian employment change, unemployment rate, and US average hourly earnings, non-farm employment change, US unemployment rate, and Fed Chair Powell speaking. Okay, so those are all of the events for this upcoming week. Now let's take a look. Let's go ahead and get started with some charts. Okay, let's go ahead and get started by looking at gold, because a bunch of you guys requested for gold, so we can go ahead and start with that. Ketan isn't available today, so I'll just be covering for him. So I'd like to start off with a higher time frame so that we kind of get an idea of the general direction that prices are headed towards. So starting off with our weekly time frame. Okay, I realize my charts are slightly cut off, so I'm just gonna adjust it. Okay. Okay, so you can see all my tools at the side now and exactly what I'm using. So on our weekly time frame, we can definitely see prices moving in an uptrend. On our daily time frame as well. Okay, we have prices moving in this ascending trend line as well on our daily time frame. Okay, so this is where I'm gonna go in with my resistance and support levels. So starting with our first support, okay, I'm gonna place it at this pullback level over here. Okay, so this is my first support. For my second support, maybe just over here at that swing high. Oops. Okay, and now I'm going in with my Fibonacci levels for my resistance levels. So the very first Fibonacci level I'm using is a projection. So this is a Fibonacci projection, which uses kind of this zigzag kind of shape. So you're projecting where prices are headed towards. Let me draw out. It can be like this kind of a lightning bolt shape. Okay, you can also, I think we might have a big one here as well. Let's take a look. Okay, so you can see the 61 also lines up with that first support, but prices have already recently broken out of that, so I'm not going to use that anymore. I'll use the 78 because it lines up with our 61, and I will place our first resistance right about there. Okay, so I'll keep the 61 and 78. And then over here, I'll just keep the 78 and 100. So you can put a second resistance here if you want, or you can wait for prices to break out of this area first before going in for a buy towards that second resistance. Okay, I'm actually going to get rid of the 78 because it's a bit confusing. So I'll just keep that 61. Okay, now let's take a look at some other Fibonacci levels. I'm going in with a retracement now. Here you can see our 50% lines up nicely. Okay, I might go in with another retracement here. Okay, that 23.6 sits nicely on the second support as well. Okay, I might actually place this first support over here instead. So it gives price a bit of space to move instead of getting stopped out right before price starts to move in our desired direction in case there's any reversals in this area. Okay, so now I'm going to Okay, so basically the first and second support. So all of these levels, you can label it as a pivot or anything that you choose. What I'm trying to do here is I'm just finding key levels of support or resistance where we might see prices kind of react off, or it might be attracted to these areas. So for example, at our first resistance, you can see we have two Fibonacci levels lining up here. So this is a confluence area, and why it's important for us to, I guess, to kind of highlight it like I'm doing here at our first resistance is because prices might be attracted um, to these confluence areas, but they might not be able to break out of these levels, which is why I mentioned earlier, you can put this second resistance if you want, um, or you can wait for prices to break out of it just so that you get that upside confirmation before going in for a buy towards second resistance. Okay, so that's basically what I'm doing here. You can also label it as your take profit or stop loss. First and second resistance, yeah. So that's what the first resistance is. It's just this confluence area. So this would be your take profit, where we would be buying towards. And then second resistance is optional. I'm just giving you guys more, I guess, key levels to take note of. Okay, so now that we're done with our Fibonacci levels, actually, oh, you can't see the numbers. Let me just adjust it so you can see the numbers at the side. I'm not sure why it's so big today. Um, it's so zoomed in, I mean. Okay, you should be able to see it now. Okay, can you see it now? I think, yeah. Okay, so now that we have our Fibonacci levels, I'm gonna go in with our indicators to see if they support our analysis. Okay, because I'm not sure if prices will react off our first resistance because it is a confluence area there. Okay, so I'd like to start off with Ichimoku and MACD because at one glance you can see exactly um what these signals are. MACD you can see is giving us a bullish signal. Ichimoku prices are moving above the cloud, so it is giving us a bullish signal as well. Let's look at Bollinger Bands. Okay, you can see prices pushing above the upper band as well, so that also gives us a bullish signal. Let's also maybe look at EMA, SMA, RSI, and stochastic. Okay. Okay, so you can see prices, I think, let me just zoom in. So you can see prices are moving above the moving averages. So that is also our bullish signal. RSI, let's see. Mm, okay, this isn't really a trend line, so I'm not gonna label that. But you can definitely see it moving, the indicator giving us quite a bullish signal, moving upwards. Same for stochastic. It's not really a trend line, but it's also moving up. Okay, so I will keep these as well. Okay, so that's for gold. Now let's move on. I'm gonna try and do as many of your requests as we can. Let's take a look at US 100 now. Or is there a request for US 30 since it's here? Okay, so same thing on a weekly time frame. You can see prices kind of rebounding off this support level. Now on our daily time frame, it's actually giving us a bit of a bullish, bearish signal. Sorry. Okay, we have. So I'm gonna go in with our support and resistance levels once again. Do we have any? No. Oops. So I'm gonna see first if we have any trend lines or trend Oh, okay, we do have a descending trend line over here. Now I'm gonna go in with my Fibonacci level, my horizontal levels first. So again, my first resistance just about here. Okay, and my first support at this swing low here. Second support maybe just over here at this overlap level. Okay, and here will be my second resistance. So now again going in with my Fibonacci levels. Okay, you can see that 50% lines up nicely. So this 23 also lines up, but you can see price already broke out of it here. So I can't use that anymore. Okay, now I'm going in with a Fibonacci extension. Okay, so for extensions, if you're unfamiliar, I'll just quickly go through. We're looking for so this is the shape that I'm using, but it's basically a Nike tick. What's happening here is that it's inverted. So it's basically something like that. Okay, and you can see the 127 lines up really nicely with our first support. Um, 127. Yeah, so I'm just gonna keep the 127 now. Okay, so let's see if there's any other. I think I'm gonna go in with a retracement here as well. 61 and 78. Yeah, so even though again the 50% does line up with our first resistance, we can't use it. Okay, because price has already broken out of that. You can see here. Okay, whereas over here, price is still reacting off that first support. Okay, so this is a confluence area here. We have two Fibonacci levels lining up. So I'm expecting prices to continue in this downtrend towards our first support. Okay, and perhaps even towards the second support because it is an overlap level. A bunch of swing highs and lows lining up in this area. So let's take a look at some indicators once again. Ichimoku MACD. Okay, prices are moving below the cloud, so it does support our bearish analysis. MACD is giving us kind of a bullish signal, so I'm not gonna use that for now. Bollinger Bands. Okay, this is not. Okay, since it's moving below that middle band, it is technically giving us a bearish signal, but I prefer to only use Bollinger Bands when it's giving us a very strong signal. So from here, for example, when you see it pushing above that upper band or below that lower band, That's when I typically prefer to use it. So we can KIV that for now. Let's look at RSI and stochastic. Okay, we definitely see the indicators giving us a quite a bearish signal. They are moving downwards as well. Okay, and stochastic is giving us a descending trend line as well. Okay. So once again, similar to before, you can wait for prices to break out of this confluence area before going in for further for a sell, towards second support, or you can do like a partial profit from first support to second support, entirely up to you. That's why I've labeled it just first support and second support, just to highlight the key levels. Okay, next. Let's look at US 100. Okay, so again we see we see prices moving in this downtrend on a weekly time frame, and we see that for daily as well. Okay, so here's my, I guess, I'll just label it as a first resistance for now. And a swing high here. So this is my second resistance. Mm, okay, no, I'm gonna place it slightly lower. And then for my second support, I'll just place it at this double swing low level. Okay. So again, similarly, I'm going in with a Fibonacci retracement first. 61 lines up, 78 as well. 50, as I mentioned earlier, you can't use it because the price has already broken out. Okay. Now, similarly, I'm using that Nike tick. Okay, but we can't use it because price has already broken out. We might use a no. I'm going to use a retracement here again. Okay, you can see that 38 lining up. Okay, and another projection here. Okay, so this 78 does line up with our, okay, actually the 78 and the 100. I will keep that. Okay, so it doesn't have to line up exactly, because like I mentioned earlier, we're looking for confluence areas more so than specific levels. So it doesn't really have to line up exactly with the horizontal levels. Okay, now let's go in with Ichimoku, MACD. So prices are moving below the cloud, so it's giving us a bearish signal. MACD doesn't support that analysis. Okay, again, we see a confluence area here. So you might see a bit of reaction playing off that support. Okay, prices are moving below the EMA and SMA, so that does support our analysis. You can see RSI and stochastic also giving us a pretty bearish signal, so that's all good. Let's look at Bollinger Bands. Okay, it's not quite pushing below it, so I'm gonna KIV this again. Okay. Okay, and that is for US 100. Okay, next, okay, we can look at Bitcoin. Okay, so on our weekly time frame, you can see there's been a recent uptick from here, from this point, the 79,150 level. Now, if we look at our daily time frame, okay, we can make use of that level again as a first support. Okay, and I'll place a first resistance up here. And a second support just below that. Okay. Now going in with Fibonacci levels once again. I'll keep the 50 and the 61. Okay, and I'll just keep the 61.8. Oops, no. I'll keep the 38.2. Okay, since it lines up with our first resistance. Okay, nope. Okay, that's all the levels I think we have here. Yeah. So I'm gonna, whoops, we have a descending trend line here as well. Okay, I'm expecting prices to continue to drop. Okay, to continue in this descending trend. So again, let's look at Ichimoku and MACD. Prices are moving below the cloud, but MACD once again is giving us a bearish signal. Sorry, bullish, so that doesn't support our analysis. Bollinger Bands, it is moving almost below, it's moving below that middle line, so it's technically still a bearish signal. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm not gonna use that for now. I'll KIV that. EMA, SMA, RSI, and stochastic. Okay, prices recently crossed below the EMA and SMA, so that is a bearish signal. RSI and stochastic. Yeah, we have a descending trend line there. Okay, we have a descending trend line on the RSI as well. So that's all good, supports our analysis, and it also is in line with price currently, since it is also moving in a descending trend line. Okay, any other requests? Okay, XAG. So now looking at our weekly time frame again, you can see the overall direction is still pretty bullish. Here we have prices moving in this uptrend. On our daily time frame, yeah, we have this as well. So just to quickly recap, what makes a valid trend line is if there are at least 3 touches on your trend line. So like before, I was saying some of the trend lines were not valid. That's one of the reasons why. Okay, so again, going in with support and resistance levels first. This will be my first resistance. My first support over here. It's a good habit to try and pull it back as far as you can. Just so you can see how many times prices have reacted off a specific level, because prices are likely to react off that level again. Okay, so I'm pulling out my Fibonacci levels for the other resistance. I'm gonna keep this 78. Okay, that 161 does line up with our first resistance. Oops. Okay, 161 as well. So again, for these, I'm using the Nike tick method. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna add a huge confluence area here. Mm. We might see prices react slightly of this first resistance. But I'm expecting it to be able to push past it and continue moving upwards. Okay. I think that's all the levels we have. Mm, okay, I think so. So let's go in with Ichimoku MACD. Prices are moving above the cloud, so it does support our analysis. MACD as well. It's giving us a bullish signal. So the reason why I say that there might be the reason why I draw this is because I'm expecting because of such a huge confluence area here, there might be a bit of resistance there. So you might see prices reacting off this level, especially since it's in line with a swing high. And also three other Fibonacci levels. So we might see prices kind of reacting off this area, which is why I've placed my first support a little bit further down, to give it a bit of space to breathe, I guess. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of the 61 because I don't need that. Okay. Um, okay, that 78 also lines up and the 100 as well. You can also, yeah, you can keep the 100 if you want. It doesn't really line up with our second resistance, but you can place it somewhere in the middle. This is again a projection, so I'm using this lightning bolt kind of shape. And we're projecting. Okay. So again, let's continue with the indicators. EMA, SMA, Bollinger Bands. Okay, you can see prices pushing above. Not yet again, so I'm gonna KIV this, but quite soon. EMA, SMA, you can see prices recently crossed above both moving averages, so it does support our analysis. Let's look at RSI and stochastic. RSI, this is not a valid trend line. But you can definitely see prices both moving upwards. Okay, both of these indicators moving upwards. Although I will say that on stochastic, um, kind of in line with what we've been talking about, with there being quite a huge resistance in this area. Over here for the stochastic, you can see a hidden resistance level. Okay, so that basically means that on stochastic or RSI, so it can be any momentum based indicator, it can be MACD as well if you want to use that. Um, but so on these indicators, we have it's giving us a hidden resistance, but on the actual price, you can see that it hit a resistance in these lining up in these areas, except maybe here. Okay, but you can see there isn't any other points lining up there. So you can see recently prices are moving upwards as we've established, but it's moving towards that support level. So it might be an indicator that prices might rebound slightly. But that lines up with our analysis as well. So just be careful of that. Like I mentioned, leave some space for the for price to rebound off this huge confluence area. Um, yeah. So far, most are still giving us a bullish signal, and prices still seem to be moving upwards. So, yeah. Okay. Um, I think we have time for one more, so I'm gonna go through WTI now. Okay. So on our weekly time frame, you can see prices moving downwards in this descending trend line. So for descending trend lines, we draw the line above. For ascending, like you saw earlier, we draw it below. Oh, sorry, I didn't see the. Oh, sorry, I missed that. Okay, we'll do that after this. Okay, so my first resistance will be here. Um, for support at this maybe just here at this swing low. Okay, I'm gonna add an intermediate support as well. It's because at this level you can see price tested it quite a few times in the past. Now going in with our Fibonacci levels. 23 and 38 line up. Mm, no. I think that's all the levels we have actually. Sometimes there aren't that many Fibonacci levels or shapes that you can find. Okay. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna use this. Okay, so I'm expecting prices to continue pushing downwards here, continuing in this trend. Okay, let's look at some indicators. Price is moving below the cloud, so it is giving us a bearish signal. MACD is giving us a bullish signal, so I'm not using that. Bollinger Bands, EMA, SMA, RSI, stochastic. Bollinger Bands doesn't support our analysis, so I remove that. EMA and SMA recently crossed over, so that doesn't really support as well, so I'm going to remove that. Mm, okay, so again, we have this hidden support level, hidden resistance level here. Okay, and it looks like prices are headed towards that level. So you can see on price, okay, at these areas, okay, that it does line up nicely, there is a resistance level there, even on stochastic. But if you look at where price is currently at, it's approaching that resistance level, but obviously on price it's made a lower low. So this is also a bearish signal here. RSI as well. It's just giving us a bearish signal as well. Okay, now let's quickly go through pound dollar as well. Okay, pretty bullish recently. Okay, you can see prices recently moving upwards, kind of reversing off this first support. Okay, and this is my first resistance. No levels lining up here, so I'll remove that. I'll put a first or second resistance up here. Okay, this is ascending trend line as well. So I'm expecting prices to be able to push upwards here. So again, with this first support, you might not want to put it so close to where price is at. You might want to give it some room to breathe. I'm just placing it here because you can see there's a lot of swing highs and swing lows that line up. Okay, no, doesn't line up. 78 lines up nicely. Okay, 127 and 161 line up nicely as well. So I'll keep both. So again, I'm using the Nike tick method here. Okay, I think that's all the levels we have here. Now let's go in with indicators. Okay, price isn't moving above the cloud. Bollinger Bands isn't really telling us much. MACD is giving us a bearish signal, so I'm gonna get rid of that. RSI, stochastic. No ascending trend line, but prices are moving upwards. However, with our MAs, it's kind of in a transition period because you can't really see there's no clear trend, is what I'm trying to say. There's no clear trend here. So I'm gonna KIV EMA and SMA as well. Okay, but I am expecting it to be able to push upwards. Because over here there aren't many Fibonacci levels. Although maybe this area might be quite a big confluence area because there's 78 and 127, and also it's quite a big overlap level. So maybe there will be a bit of a resistance here, but I'm expecting it to still be able to push beyond that. Okay? Okay. And are there any other questions? Or so like just to reiterate again, expecting it to maybe reverse or react off a little bit at the first resistance. Um, yeah, because of that area there, but I'm still expecting it to push upwards. Okay, yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me. That's all the time we have for today. Yeah, I hope you guys found this session helpful. Have a great rest of the week, and I will see you guys again soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.